Chapter 20. Dust on the Wind. They left on nervous horses, Lan leading them through the streets, Moraine at his side. Rand couldn't feel the watchers anymore and wondered where they were. Tom and the Emmons fielders realised they'd let themselves fall back too far and tried to close the distance. In a strangled voice, Moraine hissed at them to stop as a tendril of silver fog curled its way between them. It grew thicker as she told them it's Mashadar. If it touches them, they'll die. Their horses backed away without instruction, even the trained Mandab and Al-Diab. Despite all the times he'd wanted to be away from Moraine, Rand longed to be by her side. Egwene asked how do they join them, or if Moraine can kill it or clear a path. The Aes Sedai laughed, saying all the White Tower combined couldn't kill Mashadar, and channeling would draw the Fades. They must find a way to meet up at the river. Mashadar cannot cover the entire city. She pointed to a red star, telling them to follow it, to keep their bearings, and she will find them. With a warning that the smoke is mindless but can sense food, she told them to go. The tentacles of smoke started creeping toward them, and they all looked to each other, not knowing which way to go, waiting for someone to take the lead. Rand booted Cloud into a half-trot and everyone followed, keeping the star in sight. They had to backtrack several times due to dead ends or rubble. The next turn brought them to a wall of fog, and as they whirled around, Trollocs stepped out, poles in hand. The humans scattered in different directions, and Rand was pursued, riding low on Cloud's back to avoid the poles. Looking back, he saw a Fade had joined the chase. He sprinted between two tendrils before they merged and lashed out at his pursuers. Mashadar sounded like a swarm of hornets as it wrapped around its prey, who screamed in silent agony. Cloud ran faster without urging, until Rand reined in at a junction, looking around for any sign of his friends. Seeing no one, he started to panic at getting lost or not finding anyone in this vast city, and resolved to follow the plan. He spotted what looked like a pole coming around a corner, and lashed out with his sword, barely missing Mat, who stumbled back. Neither had seen anyone else and speculated that they're all heading for the river, as they should too. They rode until they found a hole in the city wall but hesitated, wondering if it was safer in the walls or without. Just as they started to head off, Tom came galloping from behind, sounds of pursuit following, shouting at them to ride. Perrin sat on his horse in the shadows, patiently watching an open city gate, studying it for danger whilst thumbing his axe. He knew people thought him slow of thought, but in truth he was just cautious, afraid of hurting people or things with his size. He weighed all options and opinions, unlike Mat, who always got into trouble, usually dragging his friends into the cookpot with him. With a shudder he tried not to think about Trolloc cookpots. He followed the plan, knowing there was little he could do alone if his friends were caught. Reaching the gate would leave him exposed, but he decided to ride, just before another horse appeared, a voice calling out softly, "Rand?" Egwene, Perrin realised with relief, and called back to her, asking about the others. He reassured the girl that Lan and Moraine would protect them and the others if they got to the river. Riding through the forest at a trot, they kept the red star in sight. Trolloc horns behind them had them galloping, branches slapping them in the face. Bellis started to fall back, and Perrin shouted to Egwene to hurry. Suddenly his horse screamed and dropped from beneath him. He fell from the saddle, splashing head first into the icy water of the Arenelle. He'd ridden off a sheer cliff. Hearing another splash, he assumed it was Egwene, until a spear appeared by his face and guttural voices of Trollocs on the bank revealed otherwise. Knowing he was safer in the water, Perrin allowed the current to take him downstream, losing his cloak that dragged him down, but refusing to lose the axe. He may need it. He angled toward the opposite bank, hoping it was Trolloc free, and reaching it, coughed up water. Freezing and shivering, he called out for Egwene and his other friends, but could only hear the beasts across the river. Climbing up the bank, he sought shelter from the icy wind. Rand, Mat and Tom still rode, the Trollocs seeming to fade away, but they'd lost sight of the star amidst the foliage. Just as Tom spotted it again, a Trolloc jumped out from behind a tree, pole in hand, and the noose brushed the back of Rand's neck. Mat took the Trolloc in the eye with an arrow, but they lost sight of Tom. They kept riding, the river appearing before them, but more Trollocs came in pursuit. Tom galloped back into view, taking 2 Trollocs with his daggers as they reached the bank. He demanded the boys pick a direction, up or downstream, but they object. The others could be anywhere. A lantern over the river revealed a trading vessel 80 foot long, moored up for the night. Tom declared it better than any raft in a smug tone. He told the boys to grab their bags. They won't be allowed to bring the horses on board. Hopefully the captain will be grateful for the warning of Trollops and forgive their boarding without consent. Rand asked if it meant they were leaving the others. Before Tom could answer, more Trollops appeared, so they left their mounts and threw their bags on board, jumping on after them. Rand landed on a sleeping man on the deck, as Tom screamed to the crew to wake and wear the Trolloc attack. The man woke grumbling as a pole lashed out at Rand, slamming into the rail. The crew woke in alarm as Rand slashed at a goat-horned Trolloc, who stood on the rail, and it fell shrieking. The crew appeared and joined in the defence, chopping the mooring lines, and the ship lurched as it swung free. The man below Rand was still oblivious to the true danger, only moaning that Rand could take what he wanted. A catchpole knocked Rand to the deck, and Tam'S sword fell from his hand, clattering. The man looked at it covetously, until he saw the Trolloc standing above, and he scrambled away. Rand tried to reach the sword as the wolf-headed beast raised its pole at him. His chest felt light and spots danced in his eyes. Rand could almost feel the pain about to come at his death, and he yelled, "No!" as the ship lurched and the boom swung around to sweep the Trolloc into the chest and into the river. Rand lay panting, barely daring to believe his luck, and standing with his sword retrieved found the battle over. A stocky man in a coat to his knees and with a beard that left his upper lip bare caught the still swinging boom. "Gelb! Fortune prick me, where do you be, Gelb? You can no hide from me on my own ship." He called to his crew to fetch Florrie and Gelb, and they pushed the man Rand had woken in front of the captain. Gelb was asked why he didn't secure the boom and slept while on watch. Gelb denied any wrongdoing, spinning a tale of being attacked by Rand, who'd led the Trollocs in their attack. He's a dark friend. The captain doesn't believe a word, citing prior issues with Gelb, and he's to leave the ship when they reach Whitebridge. The captain muttered about being chased by Trollocs, as Rand noted with alarm that the riverbank was out of sight. Rand asked the captain to stop for his friends, in return for a reward, and Tom also tried to speak, but both were cut off by the big man. He told them to join him in his cabin, shouting for someone to secure the boom. Sitting behind his desk, he introduced himself as Captain Bael Domon of the Spray. He demands they tell him who they are and why they were in the middle of nowhere, or he'll throw them overboard for the trouble they brought. Matt apologized, saying they're on their way to Camelin. Then Tom took over. He introduced himself, highlighting he is a gleeman, and the boys are his apprentices. He spun Domon a tale of winter storms, legends of treasure in Aradol, and a map given by a dying Iliana friend, that the treasure belonged to a dreadlord who'd sent Trollocs and Fades to fetch it, that Mashadara Mordeath attacked the Shadowspawn, with them caught in between, and their escape and reaching the ship. Rand and Matt stared at him, dumbstruck, and Domon declared he wouldn't believe a word if he hadn't seen the Trollocs himself. He asked if they had any of the treasure, but Tom sighed regretfully that no, they only had their belongings. Domon said that no one sails for free, especially those who bring Trollocs with them. Matt asked if he would really leave them to the beasts, and Domon claimed not to be unreasonable. Rand's sword would buy their passage. Rand said no, and at Domon's insistence that passage isn't free, the boys emptied their pockets of coin, including those given by Moraine. He took them as payment for passage, damage done to the ship and the trouble. Rand asked again about their friends, and is told they're already 4 miles downriver. The crew have been at the oars while they talked. "I'd no put in for my aged grandmother. I may no put in until I reach Whitebridge. I've had my fill of Trollocs dogging my heels along before tonight." Tom asks what he means, and Domon explains that he wintered in Saldea, where the river froze early and melted late. He saw farms and villages burning every night from Trolloc raids, and once they even came up to the walls of the city of Maradon. People were starting to talk of the last days and the Dark Ones stirring. "I can no wait to get back where people think Trollocs just be tales." Rand mused over Egwene's fate as the trio left the cabin. Tom chided them that he could have got passage free for performing, if they hadn't been so quick to flash their coin. The boys were doubtful. Domon hadn't sounded like he was joking to them. Tom tried to reassure the despondent boys that the others were safe with Moraine. Rand was upset that his attempts to talk Egwene into staying home had failed. He should have tried harder.
Thanks for listening. Please like, share and subscribe and help get a new channel off the ground. Thank you.